All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. And I know Councilmember Case is out sick and she is participating by Zoom. So Councilmember Case, just cut in when you need to, because I can't see. And also I will probably forget. So
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Would you like me to take roll call?
sure.
Okay. Mayor LaBarre,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Case,
I'm here.
Councilmember Alfieri,
Here.
Councilmember Nakai,
Here.
Councilmember Neal,
Here.
Councilmember Zuluaga.
Yes.
Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
America, we love you. Delayed.
All right, moving on to ceremonies, presentations, and appointments. We were supposed to have item 3A, which was an annual update from the Board of Commissioners, but due to the weather, they will not be here this evening. So we're going to move on to consent calendar. And we have 5A, who's that? Approval of February 17th, City Council minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This evening, we have two sets of minutes to approve. We have minutes from the February 17th council meeting, minutes from the March 3rd council meeting, and we also have the January and February 2022 statement of expenditures. We can take them all as one vote or individually, whatever council's desire is.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Rusty, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to keep them as one vote, just my position on that. But I did have a question that I asked Michael before, I'm sorry, our city manager earlier today and got an answer. And I wanted to point out the question I had asked him regarding one line item in case a citizen had a similar question. And it was in reference to the January expenditure where there's an expense for elevators, and it was elevator maintenance. I was unaware that there's an elevator in any government building, so I reached out to find out what elevator do we actually own, and it turns out the Woodland Park Police Station actually has an elevator that we needed to pull some maintenance on. That was the only line item that I didn't think was fully clear, and I did ask, and if any citizen had the same question, there's your answer. And then I turn it over to any of my fellow council members.
I'm happy to keep them all together too. I have two. And it has to do with, I remember when we went at the end of the year, we did the Civic Plus or the social, we kind of transitioned into a lot of social media in terms of our data and our information and resources. And so I saw two places on here and I just wondered if you could explain the difference. One is Archive Social on page 13 of 76, check number 113361. It's 4,788. That number kind of reminds me of the amount we expended at the end of the year, but then I thought it was the other one, the Civic Plus. So there's two, and I'll get to the other one in a minute.
Yeah, so Archive Social is actually exactly what you described. It's how we store all of our social media records over time. Civic Plus,
It's down on page 15. It's 113,400 and it's about 10 grand.
and yeah, Civic Plus is an HR recruitment annual subscription. We have a number of different software applications with Civic Plus. Civic Plus is kind of a platform, and we have a bunch of different pieces. So you might see over the course of the year, you might see a few different Civic Plus expenditures. Archive Social should be once a year for an annual contract.
So what we're running in this meeting on the Civic Plus, the login, whatever that's
This is Civic Clerk, which is a component of Civic Plus.
Civic Clerk is yeah, right.
Yeah,
All right, okay.
part of, but there's other pieces of Civic Plus.
But WhatsApp, et cetera, is WhatsApp Woodland Park is part of the the other
And so I'm
archive?
really gonna confuse you. So what's up on the park is a whole, is an entirely different platform altogether. That's Bang the Table. That's our digital democracy platform, if you will. And that's, I'm trying to remember what we paid for that one. I think it was back in January. So that's separate from Civic Plus, which is the website, which is different from Archive Social, which stores all that stuff long-term.
So Archive Social is just a storage.
It's just a storage. It's primarily for legal. Just like we have Suzanne to handle our physical records. Primarily, this is to do social media.
Very good. Thanks. That answers it.
Anything further? Okay. Go ahead and get a motion for 5A.
So I'll make a motion to approve 5A.
I'll second.
Okay, council, you may vote.
Maybe.
I
Is it
hope,
working for everyone?
I hope so.
I do have a question. for
Sure.
Clarity. The motion was for 5A.
Oh,
It should be for
Sorry,
5A, B,
five-
and
you want to take all of them?
Okay,
I
sorry. So
apologize.
I'll redo the motion to approve consent calendar 5A, 5B, and 5C.
Thank you.
Second agrees.
Thanks, Rusty.
Thank you, council. Motion has passed unanimously, excuse me.
Okay, we're on to item number 6, which is public comments on items not on the agenda. I know we do have Steve Plute signed up. And Suzanne, do you have anyone else so far?
There's no one on the sign up sheet and besides Steve and no one on Zoom.
Okay, so Mr. Plute, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you. And my name is Steve Clute, and I live in Lake George. And I want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak here tonight. The reason I'm here this evening is to tell you about a historical cross-country motorway that began in New York City and terminated in Los Angeles. And as it happens, it ran straight through our Woodland Park. One slide coming up.
Sweet. There you
And
go.
that's the Pikes Peak Ocean Highway. So starting in 1913, the Pikes Peak Highway Commission worked hard on improving our state roads to connect them with those of several other states across the nation. Then in 1915, the federal government formally recognized the road that was known as the Pikes Peak Ocean Highway as an official transcontinental highway. And there's a little headline from the Gazette back in 1915. With that recognition, the door was open for what the commission believed would be no less than 100,000 automobile travelers passing through Colorado, spending at least $4 per day. And right there, you can see an old Ocean Highway map, and you can see Woodland Park kind of in the upper center of the population of 269. A February 14th, 1926 Motors and Motoring magazine article stated that the Ute Pass portion of the Pikes Peak Ocean Highway is traveled by thousands of automobiles daily. The hordes of tourists and their dollars traveling through the new highway was extremely beneficial to mountain towns like Woodland Park and certainly fostered our economy. To many mountain towns, it was their lifeblood that got them through the long winters. And this next slide is just another old Gazette headline. Today, anywhere along its old route between the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, reminders of the famous Pikes Peak Ocean Highway are hard to find. But fortunately for Ute Pass area residents, we have a fabulous leftover of that area still standing and in use today. And this is the Cristola Bridge coming up. There, that's the Cristola Bridge. And it's located on the old road, 2.5 miles south of the Beer Works. This bridge with its ornate molded balusters has carried traffic over it for decades. Even today, according to Teller County Public Works Director Fred Clifford, 350 vehicles a day travel over it. Though battered, it has survived for about 98 years now, and through the decades has made a significant contribution to the transportation and economic history of Woodland Park and Teller County. Now, I've already sent a multi-page historical evaluation request to the State Historical Preservation Office. And their findings are that this bridge is indeed very qualified for historical designation.
Okay.
So now the next step is for me to officially write up an extensive history of both the bridge and the road and submit it back to them. And hopefully the result will be, we'll have a nationally recognized historic landmark here in Woodland Park. So tonight I'm looking for endorsements to go along with my submission to them. I'm hoping that the Woodland Park City Council and the City of Woodland Park will see the historic value in this bridge and support this project in a letter to me stating so. And in closing here, I have a few more photos of that ocean era. This next slide here, that's in 1924, down the pass a little bit. And that bridge is identical, almost identical to the Cristola Bridge. This next slide, also in 1924, it's just below Woodland Park on the old road, right below Safeway. And these are ocean tourists that have stopped for a picnic. The next slide is again on the old road, but just about where Walmart is. And that's Fountain Creek there, where Fountain Creek crosses over the old road, or whatever it's called nowadays. And then lastly, this is Ute Pass back in the Ocean Highway days. And it was known as a high gear superhighway at that time because of all the improvements they did on it. And, so anyways, that's about it for me. And I want you to know, even though something's designated a historical landmark, the owner, which in this case is Teller County, can still just tear it down anytime they feel it's appropriate for whatever reason. And so in closing, I just want to say that as the first transcontinental air flight was celebrated and the first transcontinental railroad was celebrated, this highway that ran right straight through Woodland Park was the very first transcontinental highway from New York City to Los Angeles. And again, it ran right through our Woodland Park. So I think it should be recognized as a historical landmark, and I hope you all agree. Is there any questions?
Council, any questions?
So can you explain what you mean by that? The Teller County can, so you get it on a historical record and it could still get unwound? Is that what I heard you say?
If you say your house, for example, if you want it, if it's an old house and you want to get it designated as a historical landmark, you get tax credits and you're eligible for grants and stuff. And so it's nominated and all of a sudden it's a historic landmark. But then if the very next day you decide to burn it down, you can do that. And some of you might know there was controversy up in Denver about private parties nominating buildings as historical that didn't even belong to them. But that's only because the city of Denver has that regulation in their statutes. They can do that, but nobody else can. You can do whatever you want with your historic properties. If you don't, if you do tear it down, you lose your tax credits and you won't be able to get grants any longer. Or if you do modify it in a way that takes away from its the original structure.
So this is on Teller County property?
This is on Teller County property, right on the edge of Woodland Park city limits.
Okay. So if we give you an endorsement, which sounds great, is Teller County, are you also looking to get one from Teller County?
I need their permission, and I'm working with Dan Williams right now. I need to get their permission to proceed with this. With this letter, if it's granted to me tonight, will hopefully expedite the process with Teller County commissioners.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Council, anything further?
I would just like to thank Steve for coming out, and I'm so sorry I'm not there to greet you. Thank you so much for bringing this forward. And I think it's outstanding, and all the historical work and write-ups that you do. You sent me one today that you just finished writing, and it's just such a treat to hear your knowledge. So thank you, and I do support this.
Thanks, Kelly. And just briefly about me, I grew up here in Woodland Park. I went to school here in Woodland Park. I got married here in Woodland Park, 3 blocks away from here. I worked here in Woodland Park. Then I moved to Lake George in 1973 because I thought Woodland Park had just gotten too big for me. And that's the truth. And so I've been in Woodland Park on the same piece of dirt ever since then. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Plute.
Yeah.
Rusty, go ahead.
I'm gonna
Thanks.
get back to Lake George.
Thanks, Steve.
Mayor LeVar,
Yeah.
as the liaison, I kind of worked with Steve on what process to follow for trying to obtain the letter.
Mhm.
It was my thoughts that by having him come forward and request it, we're not voting on it, but it would be
Right.
a consensus to give the city staff direction to draft the letter that we would then have a consensus for you
Sure.
to sign.
Right.
So that's how the process actually took place,
Very
step by
good.
step.
Sure. Council, do we have a consensus on that?
I have no
I-
problem with it. Yes.
Okay,
I'm
great.
definitely a yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. Anybody else signed up for comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Very good. Moving on to 7, unfinished business. We have 7A, which is the approval of Board of Adjustment Rules of Procedure. And I believe that Lou Ramon is here to present.
Again, for record, I'm Lou Ramon for the Midland Park. What you have before you in your package. What you have before you in your package is the red lines from the old version that we presented a few weeks ago. And we had some comments on that from Rusty and the other council members. What we're showing you, if you look, you've got red lines in there that show the changes that we made to improve the readability and understanding. And I thank Rusty for his help on helping us with the formatting on that. We also had some comments that dealt with how we document the results of the board meetings, particularly for an appeal. That an appellate who wishes to challenge or appeal a board decision has to take that to the district court, and the state statutes give them 30 days. And the courts have more or less agreed that the time clock starts when the Board of Adjustment makes its final decision on the appeal. The current statute, the current rules of procedure that we have allows us 15 days to document that and present that, make that available to any appellates. And Rusty and the rest of the council felt that that was too long and that it took half of the time that they were allocated. So they would not be able to have much time to work with any legal support that they might have to decide whether they had a valid case to go forward to the court. The recommendation was see if we could bring that down to 10. We worked with Nita and the legal department. Jeff, thank you for your folks. And they felt that they could bring it down to enough time that we would have a chance to look it over, make sure we concurred on it and release it within 10 days. So that's what the red lines, the green lines in your procedure reflect. So what we're asking you to do is to give your consent, your approval to this revision to the rules of procedure, the first revision that we've had in 20 years to that. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to walk you through it. But just would open it for your discussion.
Council questions?
A point of clarification that I'd like to make or bring up. When I was working with Ms. Ramon, it was actually based on comments I received from a citizen. And so I want to give credit to the citizen that reached out to us. It was Joe Fury. And it was a combination of Joe Fury's comments, and I think Stephanie and Robert had some concerns about making sure this was citizen friendly. And that's why there were specific paragraphs that were targeted, and Joe Fury reinforced them, which I worked with Mr. Ramon. And the change went from the Board of Adjustment having, one of the major changes was the board having 15 calendar days out of the 30 calendar days that an appellant has to file an appeal to the district court. And that was the situation that actually had the appeal that was filed. It was rejected because they broke the clock or the timeline by 2 days. I think they filed their appeal at the 32nd day, but there was no clarity on when the clock was supposed to start, and the judge stated what it was. We've codified that in the language that the decision is at the time the board renders their verbal decision, but we cut down and we kind of followed a 1/3, 2/3 rule, which is a military rule. The board takes 1/3 of the time to write it up, and they want to write it up carefully because, you know, lawsuits can occur if you race the legal team in putting and documenting it in writing. And that's what Nina was very concerned about, and why the negotiation. But with the language we came up with, the city agreed that they would have, and the Board of Adjustment, I'm sorry, I misstated, it was the Board of Adjustment agreed that they would take 1/3 the time, giving the citizen 2/3 of the time to then evaluate the actual document, what was put in writing, discuss it with a lawyer if they so chose, and the lawyer would have sufficient time to initiate an appeal. And I think that was one of the things I heard the council members stating. There were other things, and I'll let the other council members talk to those, but that was one that really stood out in my mind and was reinforced by Joe Fury.
And frankly, I was skeptical that we'd be able to get it down to that 10-day time frame, and Nina really helped convince us that she could do it and get it to us so we could release it to any appellate. I think what you see here is much more transparent, very much more clear than what we currently have, the 20-year-old version of the rules of procedure. We had a lot of citizen comments when we had our working sessions on putting this together, and I think we've got something, while it's, I'm sure, not perfect, it represents a significant improvement over what we currently have on the books.
Council, anything further?
Go ahead.
So what the concern that I had brought up with this at the last meeting was the limit on the amount of time for the presentations. But I see that that has not changed in this current copy.
Well, the way this is written, it is to make sure that we have a minimum time of 20 minutes allocated. It could go beyond that, but we didn't want to allow it to shorten. What we had in the way we operated within the old rules was the board set a time limit just so we could have some control and reasonableness to the meetings and get people to focus. And someone could question, well, where does it say that you've got the authority to limit time at all? The rules of procedure are empty in that regard. So we decided that we wanted to make sure that we had something in our rules of procedure that gave us the authority to limit times. And we felt that the minimum would be 20 minutes, which would go beyond that, depending on the kind of comments that we have. We also put in here something a little bit different than what City Council has. We allow people who have signed up to make public comments to cede their time to someone else. If someone has something else to say on the same subject but takes longer, other individuals can cede their time to that. So we're allowing it to do that, but clarifying that the board could establish limits, which the current procedures do not limit us from doing that. But we wanted to put it here so people would understand a little bit of what the rules are. And we would coordinate with them, the planning department would coordinate with them prior to the board meeting. And we would also make sure everyone understood at the board meeting that there would be a limitation, whether it was 20 minutes or longer.
And Mr.
Well, in here, as I'm looking at it, it says the chairman may limit the scheduled time. It doesn't say a minimum of 20 minutes. It says a limit of
And it
20
says
minutes.
May limit it to 20 minutes. I
Yes.
could limit it, or whoever is the next chairman, and I would say this is roughly something that's a decadal thing. Whoever is the chairman, but the next time we have something like that appeal, could limit it to 20 minutes, could limit it to 25, 30, 40, whatever. This is establishing that the chairman has the authority to limit it and establishes a minimum, even though it doesn't use the word minimum. It says may limit it to 20 and limit it beyond that.
Stephanie, are
And-
you kind of trying to get the last 4 words removed where it says to 20 minutes? So he has the authority, he may limit it, but not establish what that limit would be.
I'm fine with them establishing a limit if they feel they need to. I don't think 20 minutes is appropriate. In my head, depending on what it is before them, I could be comfortable with 45. I'd prefer to see 60, as you expressed at the last meeting. Some of these things are very, very complicated. The board is there to serve the citizens, and they're specifically coming to the board because there has been some sort of disagreement over a previous decision, and that takes time to lay out. And I want to make sure that the citizens feel that they have the appropriate amount of time, if need be, to have their concerns heard. When I say that, now keep in mind, I have no problem with limiting comments, public comment. But when you talk about a presenter bringing their case before the Board of Review, that is very much different for me. I know it can be laborsome. We all know up here it can be laborsome. But to some extent, in my mind, I think if this is something, and this is for any of our boards, something that citizens choose to take on and a role in which they wish to serve. For me, limiting the amount of time that citizens have to come before that board, if that's not something you're willing to give them, perhaps that's not the best place for you to be serving our city and our community. So again, I can get on board with some sort of limitation, but I think 20 minutes is just not sufficient, and I wouldn't want to limit it. I completely understand that the chair may decide to extend that. And I don't necessarily have concerns that wouldn't be the case. But at the same time, I want to make sure that that right is reserved for the citizens to have an appropriate amount of time to lay out the case before the board.
We felt as a board and in conjunction with our legal counsel, that we needed something to say we did have some authority to limit it. We felt that if we put in something like 60 minutes, for example, and because of circumstances, we needed to limit it to 40 or 30, that we'd have no authority to do that. That it says the board may limit it to 60, doesn't give them the authority to limit it to anything other than that or anything shorter particularly. The way this was written, we felt that 20 minutes would be a minimum, and we wanted to put that minimum authority in there. We could always extend it. And that's why we picked the 20 as opposed to a 60 or
So,
30 or 40.
so
And-
can I,
May I?
it kind of piggybacks on what you started with. Go ahead. Is it okay? So if you read the second paragraph or the second sentence to that where it says, the chair chooses to establish these time limits for presentator discussion, they will be included in the posted meeting. So that's where he could change it to be 45 or 60 if it's a
And-
very
and-
complicated case, then he could do that, or he could even make it 2 hours. But, you know, like he said, if you give him the 20 minutes as the basis, and then you can always add on to it, I would think that that would be sufficient, but
I guess.
I mean, I understand your concern. I really do.
I'm
trying to
looking at
comprehend
it from the other way, that I would like to see the citizens on the front end have more time and be allocated more time to present their case. If they don't need it, great, they don't need it. But and I understand your comment about, you know, situations and that certain circumstances may not allow for enough time and they might have to limit presentations. I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with that. The citizens have a right to be heard, especially in cases like that. If the circumstances don't allow for an appropriate or what they feel is an appropriate amount of time for their case to be heard by the Board of Review, then something needs to be moved around, changed. The board needs to make the appropriate accommodations for the citizens to be heard. And I know this is very blunt, but again, if anyone on that board is not willing to do that on behalf of the citizens because they're serving them, then maybe that's not the place for them to be. I do not want to limit the citizens. These are oftentimes very impactful situations that the board is dealing with. And I don't ever want to believe that a citizen didn't feel that they had the appropriate time to bring their case before the board for decision.
Mayor, may I speak?
I'm going to let Councilmember Zulawaga go, and then I'll come back to
Okay.
you, Councilmember Case.
No worries. I didn't see him raise his hand. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Lou, for making the revisions to this. My question ties in with what Councilmember Alfieri is saying. I understand from talking with Catherine and Neil and Councilmember Neil that there has been some testy behavior at some of these board meetings. Is that a fair comment?
Yes, unfortunately, apparently that testy behavior seems to occur once every 10 years or so, but it did happen.
So if you have folks who come to the meeting and they are, for example, given 20 minutes and they really need the hour and the board has limited that amount of time, is that the cause for this testy behavior that we've seen on the board in some cases?
No, I don't think that was the cause of that at all. The problems that we face, there are times with certain individuals where they, for reasons that they have, can't focus and can't present something in a concise manner and just seem to be able or willing, wanting to ramble on time and time about things that really aren't germane to the issue.
And is
So-
that what makes them mad?
They were unhappy to come to the board to start with.
Okay. They didn't like having to be accountable.
They didn't like having to be accountable, and they didn't like even the idea of being able to, having to come to a board and have a board make a decision that they might not agree with.
I understand. So then in 3.5A, I can see why the paragraph's there, but I just wonder about definition. What is, and I talked to Councilmember Nikai about this, what is proper respect and decorum? So who decides that? And then they're warned for it. So if somebody is very emotional about something they're bringing before the board and they're very passionate about it, you could argue that their passion upsets your decorum. Where's that line? I guess it seems a little general to me.
You have to respect the authority of the board, respect particularly, I'll blow my horn, but respect the authority of the person that's going to be the chairman, just as
Okay.
you respect the authority of the mayor leading this. Somebody has to have the responsibility for controlling the meeting in order to make sure that the public does have the opportunity to present their things and make sure that the members of the board who have to make a decision can focus on the pertinent facts. And I think that's part of when you folks approve an applicant to be on the board, that's part of the thing that essentially you're saying is
Sure.
that those people have the ability to render those kind of decisions and make those kind of decisions on how the meetings are run and do the right thing.
And Robert, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Well,
In the one appeal that we were on, Mr. Ramon gave the individual speaking 3 warnings to calm down before the 4th warning, which was to contact the police department. So it wasn't just, I don't like what you're saying, we're done. I mean, he gave her ample opportunity to calm down and tried. So decorum it is a tough
Yeah.
decision, but like I said, you have to trust who you appointed to some extent to understand that they're doing the right thing.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let Councilmember Case go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I see that all lying in the hands of the chair. And forgive my voice. The chair is in charge of keeping order. And I trust that the chair has that ability. But in listening to the conversation on the dais with the council and listening to the presentation, maybe a solution would be that would facilitate the concerns of the council and the attempt or the desire of the board is to take the number out and leave that discretion with the chair, that he sees that there's more time needed or less time needed. And then the party that's speaking is given the full opportunity to bring what they're wanting to share. And then that gives the authority back to the chair to moderate the meeting, as is their job. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Case.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, on that same note, maybe it just changes or either take the number out or make it something to the effect of, or city presentations to 20-minute increments or something like that at the chair's discretion.
The problem with that is if they're going to actually
Post it,
present,
yeah.
they're going to present an appeal, they need to know how long that appeal is going to be. So at a minimum, they have 20 minutes. If it's going to be contentious, the chair can say before, he'll post it on the agenda beforehand to know that they will know that it's 45 or 60 or whatever. So I don't like taking it out. I mean, I
How
don't
could
have
it
a
say that?
problem
How could
leaving
it
the
say that?
20.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem taking out the 20 minutes and leaving it to them, but they have to know before the meeting.
So I'm going to weigh in. I think that what you have written is appropriate. I think that chair should command control of the room because oftentimes appeals can come in and they are absurd and they can waste people's time. And the chair should have control of that. I think giving party notice, you have 20 minutes to present is appropriate. In the Supreme Court of the United States of America, you have about 15 to 20 minutes to present your side. If you can't do that in an appeals board with the attorneys reviewing it, and you know ahead of time, then you've probably got a huge case that I'm gonna guess the Board of Adjustment's probably not going to be dealing with. It'll likely be the Planning Commission. So I think what you've written is appropriate. I feel like now we're wasting everyone's time by arguing about the amount of time that a chair of a board of citizen volunteers who are professional have deemed worthy in their reviews, in their rules of updating. And I'd like to call the vote.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Councilmember Neal.
I'm sorry.
Since I was involved with the BOA appeal that this paragraph addressed, I do want to point out to the council that the language is acceptable to me with or without the 20 minutes because it may. The important thing that I wanted, and I was trying not to be too forceful when I was working with Mr. Ramon, because I would be representing Rusty Neal versus input from the citizens. But I did work with him so that that a notification of how much time would be granted to the appeal was now included. That was my heartburn and what caught me off guard. I was not notified that I only had 20 minutes in my written appeal
Sure.
that I had practiced over and over again was 30 minutes. So on the cuff, I was trying to cut out 10 minutes worth of time. They've addressed my big concern. And I think the willingness to negotiate, if I needed 40 minutes, I could have come back to the BOA and said, I've been notified that you're giving me 20 minutes. Can we negotiate? Can I have 40? And go back a little bit. But the fact that it's now got to be published, how much time that the appellant has, that's the key. I didn't know, I was blindsided. And the other appeal, they came in with a binder that, I mean, if it were a true court of law, and Hillary, I turn to you, there's a discovery. The binder should have been given to the Board of Adjustment and the defense before that appeal started. To think that a board was going to be able to read and digest an entire binder right there during the appeal was kind of unfair to the Board of Adjustment. So I think it was nice to have the 20 minutes as a start. He's very good to work with in adjusting it. I just wanted to see that there was official notification how long they would have, and that was included.
And I would just, I want to ensure that citizens feel they have appropriate time to present their case.
Agreed.
I don't feel that this does this. It limits it to 20 minutes, saying it's at the chair's discretion to give more or less. I would like to see it so that there is more than ample time for most citizens to present their case, more than is needed, but at least they are assured that they have the ability to do that and are not at the whim of the chair to decide whether or not to grant extra time. The idea of comparing this to the Supreme Court case, I don't think most of our citizens are bringing high-powered, high-paid, highly experienced attorneys in with them to present these cases. So I think for giving them and their ability that they're not experienced in doing this on a regular basis, I don't see the comparison. I'm not comfortable with 20 minutes. I don't think that many citizens, maybe some would, maybe some wouldn't, feel that that's ample time to present their case. I am okay putting a time limit in there, but I'd like to see it be more than that in
Okay,
a way that
we get
it's
it.
ample.
We get it. Thank you. I'm
Thank
calling
you.
the vote.
I'll make a
Do I have a
motion. to
second?
approve.
Point of order, doesn't that, do we have opportunity for any public comment on this?
Probably, because I always forget. And we do.
It's up to you,
But
Mayor.
Is there anyone signed up for public comment?
No,
Any hands up on Zoom?
no.
Okay, I'm calling the vote.
Okay, again, I'm going to make a motion to approve the bylaws as presented.
I'll second.
Council, you may vote. Thank you, Council. Motion has carried 4-2.
Thank you. Mr. Roman, thank you for your time on this matter and your professionalism. And Rusty, thank you for your assistance.
Thank you for your help, Paul. Council,
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
All right, we're going to move on to item 8A, ordinances on initial postings. Remember, this is initial posting. It's approval of ordinance 1421, series 2022. And the presenter is going to be Aaron.
All right, tonight I have ordinance 1421, which is a budget supplemental ordinance to amend the 2022 budget expenditure appropriations. We have 3 items tonight included in the supplemental. We have a pooled dollars for targeted wage increase. In the 2022 budget, we had approved a market study for city compensation, and included with that was supposed to be $100,000 of unassigned funds to actually implement the compensation study, but it was unfortunately not included in the budget as an expenditure as it was supposed to be. So we're bringing that forth to have that properly recorded. The second item we have is asbestos mitigation for the Midland terminal building, which is in combination with the city and the DDA We received a $5,000 check from Newmont Gold Mine, and we would like to have that appropriated so we can spend that with those funds. And the third item we have is an ARPA municipal broadband deployment plan. In 2021, as a supplemental, we had $40,000 approved to be used with the ARP funds. And it was not carried over to 2022 because we thought the funds would be spent in 21, but it just didn't happen.
Council, questions or comments?
We've already
So-
voted, comment, we've already voted on it and approved it. These are just technical things that we. need.
Correct.
So, and this is initial posting. We're just moving it forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I get a vote then?
I'll make
Aye.
a motion. You do
Or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1421 series 2022 on initial posting to amend the 2022 budget expenditure and revenue appropriations, the budget supplemental ordinance, and set the public hearing for April 7th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. Council, you may vote. Thank you, council. Motion is passed unanimously.
All right, moving on to 9A. We are at approval of ordinance number 1418. And our presenter for that is Judge McCormick. Judge McCormick. I thought it was McClintock.
It is. Oh. It is.
It's St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
They're just putting mix in front of everything.
It is McClintock,
Yes.
and that is Irish too, but good evening. I'm here to present about 1418. As indicated on the proposal that we discussed previously, this is an ordinance simply to put together a collections mechanism so that we can effectively collect on fines and hopefully restitution as well that might be outstanding in regards to any municipal case from the past. Currently, we don't have a collections mechanism in place anymore. Previously, we had relied upon what was called an outstanding judgment on warrant fee, and then would use that in concert with the Department of Motor Vehicles for enforcement. And then when people would go to renew their driver's licenses, and that worked even with out-of-state offenders, when they would go to renew their licenses, they would have, it would show up and they would get notice that they needed to take care of an outstanding fine or something from a court. And then they'd have to take care of that before they could renew their driver's license. With that being taken away by the state legislature, we have no mechanism really for trying to get outstanding judgments or outstanding fines and things like that addressed by people. And so this is just a way for us to try to address that. Obviously, every municipal court in the state is having to deal with this situation now. And so every municipality is trying to pass an ordinance such as what has been proposed here in order to address it.
Council questions or comments?
I just have one question as far as any associated cost for us to do it this way. I do see that it allows for 25% of the original amount assigned for the collection. Do you expect this to impact finances in any way for the municipal court? Do you think this process is going to cost a significant amount of money to do it this way?
My understanding is that that's going to be in addition to what is already outstanding. So the collections agency is going to be able to add on a cost to it. So unfortunately, it'll cost the people who do not pay their fines. It'll put on an administrative cost on top of things for them. It did before too, when they had to pay OJW fees and things like that. So it's sort of a wash in that regard. We do everything we can to try to avoid that for people. Typically, we don't require people to pay their fines and costs right away if they can't afford to do that in court. We'll do that and set it over at least until our next court appearance without having them do any administrative cost in addition to what's already owed. If they need to set up a payment plan with the court, which most people don't need to do, we try to keep the fines and fees down, of course. We have one of the lowest court costs of any court in the state, of any municipal court as well. So we try to keep everything as low as possible. And then if they have to set up a payment plan, the city does require a $25 administrative fee for that. And then they can spread their payments out as long as they need for that. And typically Carla is the one who does the collections for that and reminds people. She makes lots of phone calls and things like that. But when we're dealing with a situation where it's a debt collection and things like that, we're not qualified to do that. We do not have the capability to make sure that we're in compliance with debt collection procedures and things like that. So that's why we need this ordinance, and we need to retain an actual debt collection firm for these ones that are so old and outstanding. So,
Council, anything further? Okay, can I get a motion?
We need a public.
Oh, yeah. Every time.
That's okay. There's
There's
nobody signed up.
nobody-
We just have to.
There's nobody in the
we have to
audience
offer it.
whatsoever signed up, so, and nobody on Zoom, right?
No,
So,
ma'am.
okay, now may I get a motion?
All right, I move to approve ordinance 1418, series 2022, an ordinance of the city council of the city of Woodland Park, Colorado, amending chapter 1.116 of the Woodland Park Municipal Code to establish a procedure for the collection of unpaid municipal court fines.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, council. You may vote. Thank you, council. Motion is passed unanimously.
All right, very good. We're going to move on to item B, approval of ordinance 1420, series 2022, and the presenter is going to be our city attorney, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council and mayor, we discussed this at our prior meeting on first reading. This ordinance was proposed by council member Nakai. Perhaps I'll turn it over to you, council member,
Oh.
to explain the reasons.
Okay,
for
sure.
this.
I'm on the spot. So back, just for the public's record, so back in 2019, I happened to go through our municipal code looking for something else, and I found this law that basically says it's unlawful for any person as a patron of an establishment where beer or alcohol beverages are sold for consumption on the premises to possess or carry or display any dangerous or deadly weapon, whether concealed or not, while on the premises of such establishment. So I approached our previous police chief to ask him about it, and he basically informed me that this law has not been enforced in his tenure. And so I thought we should have it removed. He said he didn't have time to deal with it, so it just got left alone and not enforced. So going forward, when we got our new police chief, I called him and spoke with him about it. And his idea basically is if the law exists, I will enforce it. So from that, I asked him if he would have an issue removing the law, and he said he did not. So that was when I suggested it. I mean, that's how we got here today. Since then, I've received a little background. I received an email from a gentleman who was concerned about this, and I discussed it with him along with Sheriff Mikesell. And there's a couple things. The state statute will be enforced if we remove the law, and the state statute does not allow anybody to carry a weapon concealed or open and be intoxicated in a bar. So I think that pretty much takes the onus on the gun owner to take responsibility for their actions. And I believe that in general, all of our Teller County and Woodland Park gun owners are responsible adults and aren't going to go shooting up a bar or a restaurant if we remove the law. So that's basically, we're not the Wild Wild West anymore. We have means to control it. I also did a little bit more research, and Colorado Springs follows the state statute. Pueblo follows our statute with the exception of it allows for concealed carry. So that's pretty much where we are today.
Very good. Council questions or comments? Sure.
I too received the email from a citizen in Teller County. He expressed his concerns. We talked it through, and I told him I would talk with both the sheriff and the police chief, and I have done both. We do not have a history here at all of having any problem with firearms in bars. We have no, how do I say it? I'm not speaking for the sheriff or the police, but basically they're not bothered by it, and they don't enforce it. It has not risen in the entire history. I think 20 years is what I heard of this being an issue. It really is a Second Amendment right. And so from the standpoint of a Second Amendment right and honoring that, we have no issue with it. I agree with you. It's not necessary on the books. It doesn't change how behavior is. In fact, we have quite good behavior. And I would also argue that if somebody tried to come into a bar and shoot it up, he or she is going to be sorely surprised with the number of people who will stop him. So I have no objection to this, and I'm satisfied, and I like to communicate to the author of this. If you are listening, I don't want to necessarily say his name because he didn't want to come before council, but I have spoken to both county and city attorney, law enforcement, and they're both at peace with it. So unless our attorney has any comment about it, yeah, I'm good with it.
I'll just
Councilman
go
Mayor?
ahead and make comment. I support this initiative simply because I was unaware. I mean, there's a very large percentage of people in Teller County and Woodland Park that have a permit to carry. I have a permit to carry, and I carry quite often. I did not realize that I was violating a municipal code, that you couldn't take it into an establishment. Was not even aware of it. I got the same letter, and when I thought about it, I knew that the state statute, though, prevents you from carrying and being intoxicated. And I think that's what the point of the citizen was. He's concerned about guns and alcohol, which I'm concerned about. But most people, when they go into a restaurant and have a beer or something like that, are not getting intoxicated. They can't. I mean, if you're getting to the point that you're intoxicated, you're not going to be driving, and you shouldn't be carrying. So I just like the removal because it keeps more honest people in compliance with the law. And the important law is not to drink and carry. I've
Not
got,
to be intoxicated.
I'm sorry, intoxicated. Yeah, I'm watching your body,
You have to
your
ask the
department.
mayor.
So I've said
Yeah.
something that I may not have intended to say. So please clarify.
We can take public comment, absolutely. Come on up.
You're misreading a lot. It's not intoxicated where you're intoxicated to a DWI or DUI extent. It's intoxicated to the slightest degree. So, yeah, you don't have to prove a level of intoxication. It is just that you're impaired to the slightest degree. And I represent two people in my private practice right now, one who's a soldier and one who's a parent who was trying to defend his daughter when she has a restraining order against her abusive husband. And he had a shotgun in his possession and had a drink at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the husband showed up at 8 o'clock at night. And that's what they ended up charging him with. And so it happens all the time that people get charged with that. And so under the state statute.
Under the state statute.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
This is in El Paso County. So, I mean, when you have a gun in your possession and you're around any alcohol, you can get charged.
And it's a criminal offense, not a municipal
Yeah.
offense.
No, it's a class
Correct.
2 misdemeanor offense.
Correct. Which is why if I were to carry, I would not drink.
Right.
And I guess I'm missing your point because I think I was saying words that were in violent agreement. Regardless, I want to be able to carry my firearm legally. So by removing this, I can go in, but I'm still held to the standard. I cannot be intoxicated and carry.
Right.
And the state statute still is in place, even though we may change our municipal
Right.
statute.
It means you can't drink
Yeah.
at all while you're in there. And I mean, the one thing that you need to keep in mind too, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't heard from any bar owners about this, is that they still have a significant dram shop liability in regards to this. If they have someone come in and tell them that they want another drink and they have a gun on them and they have a bartender trying to cut them off, I mean, to me, that's kind of an issue, but, and I'm not talking as a judge here, I'm talking just as a person. I mean, I assume that was one of the reasons why it was put into place in the first place, is because of the fact that you don't want people in there who could be drunk with a gun. And yeah, it's not about concealed carry people. Concealed carry people have already gone through training and are probably the most responsible gun owners out there. It's the people who are not, the people who are walking around and you don't know are carrying, and then they go and drink. And now they're gonna say, well, it's fine for me to have my gun in the bar. So those are the ones you gotta worry about all the time. And it's not something, like I said, that gets charged very often or ever, because it is a state statute, but we're kind of addressing the issue here that if you take it away, it's never coming back. And you might be causing more problems for some other people that you haven't really thought about. I mean, there are lots of issues here. Like I said, the liability issues for bar owners, I think someone should be talking about. It's a misdemeanor and it's slightest degree is what you need to keep in mind. Any drinking with a weapon is a class 2 misdemeanor offense. So, that's one point.
Thank you. Excellent points. So just one real quick, because I can't see Kelly and I don't know, and she hasn't spoken yet. Councilmember Case, do you have any comments? She's
I
asleep.
do not.
I'm
Thank you.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I had to unmute. Thank you. I do not have any
Sorry.
comment. Thank you.
Okay, council, go ahead.
I think we maybe just got down a rabbit hole. There is a difference between limiting someone who is drinking or intoxicated carrying a gun versus this ordinance itself. Technically, it's against our municipal code for anyone, whether sober or intoxicated, to have a firearm in a bar. So, yeah, I just wanted to point out, I think we kind of went off on a tangent and wanted to make it clear that this isn't just, this is not specifically saying, okay, yeah, it's okay to go drink in a bar and have a gun on you. This is talking about any citizen, whether they've had a drink or not, technically can't carry a firearm in that establishment.
So would it be right to say that in an environment of a bar, that right now, there is no one who can defend against somebody who is carrying? And if we remove this law, it would put a situation where somebody who was carrying, it's lawful to carry, who's not drunk, could defend other patrons from somebody who is drunk and has a firearm. Is it fair to say that's, I mean, that's the whole idea of the Second Amendment right. You have a right to carry because you may be the one who stops the predator.
I would just say that law enforcement always has the ability to carry. Certainly.
I'm going to go ahead and let our clerk make a comment.
The one thing too that I want to bring to council's attention is it's not just a bar. This is restaurants. So
Yeah.
currently you can't be in a restaurant
Mhm.
with your gun. It doesn't say just bar
It's
here.
just
It
where
says
they serve
possession of establishments selling alcoholic beverages, all our restaurants in town.
Which was what brought it to my attention originally.
Okay, council, any further comments or can we make a motion?
Let's get a public comment.
We have
Um,
not,
I,
we did kind of,
the one cue is, so the Zoom audience knows, there's hardly anyone in the audience this evening. So I
Okay.
just need to remember to ask Suzanne if there's a hand up, and she's pretty good at letting me know if there's a hand up.
There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. So I appreciate the reminders, but this evening it's rather obvious, so.
okay, so I'm going to make a motion to approve ordinance number 1420, series 2022 on an ordinance for the city council of the city of Woodland Park, Colorado, repealing section 9.70.040 of the Woodland Park Municipal Code to allow for the possession of firearms in establishments selling alcoholic beverages.
I think we'll all second.
Somebody want a second?
I will, yeah.
Okay, council, you may vote.
Maybe.
That's your last meeting.
Thank you, council. Motion is carried, passed unanimously.
All right, moving on to item number 10, new business. We've got 10A approved resolution number 888, establishing water and sewer plant investment fees, and our Director of Operations, Kip Wiley, is presenting.
Thank you. I'll share my screen here. I also provided hard copies on the dais for you to better follow along. So I'll just pull up the supporting spreadsheets that support the main sheet. As council knows, we've been through this a couple times. So I'll go through that. First is a debt service summary, basically. See if this works. There we go. So before council is the debt service. You can see, I just want to point out everything above the dash line between 2021 and 2022. Everything above is actual, everything below is crystal ball, if you will, planning, and the debt that is accrued for certain projects. Just want to point out in 21 and 22, there's zero debt in the water fund. You can see the large payment of $143,000 in 2020 as we paid off the remainder of our debt a couple of years early. Moving forward under the dash line, there are 3 projects. The first one being the $120,000 financed for expanding our conveyance of the Homestake Pipeline. We've been planning for that for the last 10 years and still will continue. Moving to the right, the water augmentation reservoir, we have in here finance at 10 million at 2.5% for 20 years. That number has been increased. I want to bring that to your attention. Before we had financed 8 million, and I have increased the cost of that reservoir due to everything's increasing. Over the last 10 years, I've been kind of tracking where I can and get updated estimates, and we've increased it over the years to hopefully reflect what the true cost to build that is. So $641,000 annual payment, and we are still paying 1 million cash for the engineering. And then moving over to the next column on the right, the 134,000. I had to add this year. I don't like to go into debt, as you all know, but the way the fund balance was laying out, this 134,000 is for upgrade to the water treatment plant, and I have that projected for 2027. That will be exactly 30 years since the plant was built, and it's going to be due for some improvements for sure. And I have $2 million financed for that and paying cash of 1.5. Any questions on the debt service?
I had asked you before about what that looks like if we did not go into debt, what sort of changes would have to be made in the fee structure. Could you kind of review that?
Absolutely. So we have two things that we sell in the water fund. That would be water and the tap itself. So I would have to increase those fees, either tap fees and or rates to our customers to be able to afford that. So, and I'll go through the details when we get to the main spreadsheet on what's planned as far as fees, tap fees, and then rates.
And then the other comment is, so it's an upgrade on a 30-year-old facility. You have a projection on how long, and I know it's a crystal ball and it's foggy, but with some of the changes to the water technology, is it realistic to think that an upgrade is going to be suffice, or is there going to be some other sort of regulations that?
It'll be regulation driven. We're already seeing some changes with radium removal. We had that planned in our budget this year. And the cost of that is getting pretty significant, as well as new technology that comes out. And our filters are getting old. I'm not saying they're not effective, but they are getting old and they will need to be, I will say, upgraded or retrofitted to newer technology.
And then my last question on this, as you're looking at this, is that of what are our water rates compared to other municipalities? And are we fairly representing that, given the fact we've got costs coming up? Are we fairly representing that? Are we in the high end, the low end, in the middle in terms of fees?
If you just look at rates, so what our customers pay, Woodland Park already uses less water per person. We're at about 51 gallons per person per day. I think the national average is around 80. So we sell less water. And I would say the average bill that we have is around 3,700 gallons a month, which is lower. However, when you look at other municipalities, I would say we fall right around the middle of what rates are, but it all depends on usage, and trying to calculate apples to apples, oranges to oranges for other people's rate structures does get a little complicated because you try to cipher through all that. But from what we can tell, we fall right in the middle. So every year DOLA asks for our information and along with all the other municipalities, and they spit it out and say, this is where you fall. I will say on an average water bill, we fall in the middle. However, when you start using more water, so we have a block structure, meaning 0 to 4,000 gallons, we have the same rate, 4,000 to 6,000 gallons, that rate increases. So that as you use more, you pay more. And it's a conservation method. I will say, when people use more, they pay more in Woodland Park though. But our average water bill, it falls right in the middle.
Go ahead, thanks.
Council?
Yeah, I'll move on to capital.
Sure.
See if this comes up. Okay, so this next spreadsheet is basically tracking all cash funded capital projects. So everything above the dotted line is actual, everything below is projection. You can see over the last, I would say, 4 years, the column on the right for the total, we have increased our spending because prior to that, we were in savings mode because we had the debt, we were paying off debt. And as that debt was paid off, we started making improvements because we needed some. So you can see that. And then I try to explain in the cash funded special projects column what that actually is paying for. I have started to budget for Twin Lake shares, where in the past we didn't. We would just try to buy them when we could. But now I'm putting that in planned cash funded projects. So I'm very proud of that fact. And then you will see everything below the dash line. So in 2022, that is what we budgeted to spend. And $1 million of that is the water reservoir engineering, if we can move forward with that. So technically there's about 1.8 million in other projects outside the reservoir. And hopefully we can move forward with those. And then everything below is a projection crystal ball, if you will. I will point out in 2027, if you move 3 columns to the right, you'll see the 1.5 million I talked about for the cash payment for the water treatment plant upgrade. And then in here, I have a couple $1 million placeholder for sub-base improvements. I hope that's enough, to be honest. I don't think it is, but I hope it is. And then at the bottom of the spreadsheet, I have a note on here of things that aren't funded. things that we believe that need to be done. For example, 3-phase power up to the water treatment plant. Currently, it's single phase. We have to run on a generator for extra power when we do certain functions. All of our other facilities are on 3-phase, but there's certain things that are in here that aren't funded yet. And I try to keep up with equipment replacements, when we're gonna drill more wells, so on and so forth. So the previous spreadsheet and this spreadsheet all funnel into the next spreadsheet that I'm going to show you. Any questions on cash funded projects? Okay. So last spreadsheet is your favorite one. The water tap management reconciliation, where it takes all this information and puts it together. What I try to do is highlight key areas I want you to focus on. So this spreadsheet obviously works from left to right. So it takes your resource on the left, basically the taps you sell and the water you have. So all your revenue is on the left-hand side to the middle. So it takes into account taps, tap fees, how many taps you sell, revenue from tap fees, and it takes your commodity, how much water, or the revenue from the water. And as you move to the right, there is a water capital fee, and then you get into operational costs, debt service, capital expenses, and then total. And then on the far right, you have an annual balance and then the cumulative fund balance. So again, everything above the dash line and under 2021 is actual. I will say 2021 isn't audited yet. So bear with me on these. These are my projections for what will be audited. They should be fairly close. And everything below takes into account all that information I just showed you on the debt service sheet and the cash funded capital expenditures. Okay, and then the tough part with this is how many taps are we going to sell each year? And if you can predict that, I'm all ears. But I project, I will say an average, not too little, not too many. I've seen anywhere from 5 taps to 52 taps sold in a year. So if you look at my projections, I'm anywhere from 20 to 30 taps in a year. So I budgeted 20 for this year. We've sold 1 so far. Also in here, everything below the dash line is projection. So I have a 5% increase in taps from now until 2038. I had to remove 2 years where we had 0 increase because the fund balance could not withstand that. If we didn't increase tap fees, I would have to increase rates for our customers. As you move over to the right under column G, column G is basically the annual commodity revenue per tap. So what I've highlighted in gray, the $548, that's what each customer pays on the year for water, $548. So in this column, I highlight it here because as of April 1st, 2022, our fees will increase 3.54%. That's just an automatic increase. That's how our code's set up. That's the inflation factor. And they will increase. For future years, I have an increase of 2.5%. And the data I've collected over the last 12 years since I've been here, the average for the CPI has been 2.5%. So I'm sticking with that average as well. As you move further to the right, capital revenue fee in column J, that increases at the 2.5% as well. Moving over to column L, operational costs, I have that increasing at 3%. I will tell you it's going to be more than that this year, but that's the average that I have in the spreadsheet. Just as a side note, we just got a letter this week from Kiewit, who we get asphalt from, and the price of asphalt's going up 20%. So I'm going to anticipate similar things with, I'll say, distribution, equipment, materials, supplies. So that increases at 3%. If you continue to the right in column P, the annual balance, I have highlighted in the light blue, the $830,000. That's how much the water fund will make in 2021 after all expenses paid and revenues collected. If you move back over to the left, what I have highlighted in purple and green were what I pointed out on the debt service spreadsheet. of the $143,000 payment, and then the 2 years highlighted in green where we have zero debt. Moving back to the right in column P, I've highlighted in red a very high expenditure of the water treatment plant upgrade. That's what I'm bringing to your attention there. And then also all the way in the right, I have the columns highlighted in yellow where I don't like where the fund balance is. Truth be told, I don't like it to drop below 2 million, but I'm trying to be, I'll say, conservative with how much we have in the bank. And also what our customers pay. I'm very proud of the fact we haven't increased rates other than inflation since 2010. In 2010, we increased rates 13.7% because we couldn't pay our bills. We've tried to decrease rates since then. Last year, we did not increase rates at all. There was a 0% increase. I brought an ordinance to council with this reconciliation where we did not increase rates to our customers. And this year, they will, I'm asking, well, I'm not asking, they'll go back up just based on the annual adjustment of 3.5. What questions may I answer?
Council.
Kip, I look at your numbers above the dotted line, and I see you have a good cumulative balance, you have a good reserve. Then I look starting in this year, and your number of taps that are sold markedly decline. What justification do you give for that when you look at, your 53, 55, 40, 30, 39, 52? What's your projection? How come you see them so few?
If I were to unhide the cells from the previous 10 years, they would be lower than what I'm projecting.
Oh, the previous 10 years that we don't see on here
Correct.
are also in the 20s?
So they go anywhere from 5 taps up to maybe 30. And then over the last couple of years, you can see the economy's been decent, so people have been buying taps. So that's why you see increased tap sales. And like any business, I mean, this is our resource. I would say when the economy is good, you have to do your best to capitalize on what you have. And when the economy is bad, you do your best to make sure it's still affordable.
So is this a very conservative look with these tap sales projecting forward on your graph?
I wish I knew exactly where the tap sales would go. I mean, I budget conservatively. So I would say I budget revenues slightly below where they probably actually are, and expenses a little bit higher, so we can make sure we're being safe and moving forward in that direction. One thing I didn't point out in here is the column on the left, column B, that's highlighted in purple and orange. Those are just the number of taps. The reason I highlighted 2022's 999 taps is that's what we talked about with the single family tap allotment. With the new census numbers, it increased the taps due to the new census, whether I believe the numbers or not. And then the years below that in orange, the tap number actually goes up because we develop more water in those years and we have more water available. So we just converted those additional wells, how much water they'll produce, and we basically convert that into taps. So.
Council, anything further?
Yes, I have 2 questions. First, I want to pat you on the back. I think you do a great job of managing the taps, managing our budget, and ensuring we have adequate water and services to the people. There are 2 questions I have heard from citizens that I'm going to ask you to just address, and it's more for education for them, because I think I know the answer, but I'm not certain. The first one has to do with the reservoir. The last time we spoke, I know that there was negotiations, and I know you can't go into too much detail with the Boy Scouts who actually own the land. Have we made any progress, in your opinion, moving forward with those negotiations? So all this planning to have this reservoir, since we would have the money planned for, will ever come to fruition? That's my first question.
Yes, there's been some progress, very little. If I could get a staff to help work, I'm keeping the wheels on every day that I don't get to actually do the things that I'm hired to do because I was plowing today. So That's the way it goes. So I would say, yes, there's been some progress. There's been 0 negotiations. That's up to council to negotiate. So we had some movement when Jason Myers was here. And then we took a little bit longer to hire an attorney. I didn't want to get someone up to speed and pay all that money and then not know if they're going to be here. I have worked with Nina on some of the deed restrictions that are out there to try to figure out if there's any court costs that we need to go through, trying to collect all the data that to put it into a financial definition for council, so they'll know exactly how much this is going to cost and what it looks like. So I have not bugged Nina in a while, and I would like to think so. We'll be moving forward as soon as we get some more staff on board.
I guess I was a little surprised with that response. Is there something that we as council can do with a consensus to get more time?
No, it's all in my court.
Oh, it is all in your court and you accept that?
I do.
Okay.
Council has already approved the budget for me to move forward with those types of things. I just simply need the time.
Okay. The second question, and I don't know the answer to this, I think I know. I've heard citizens concerned about the new project that Karis, and I'm thrilled about the project where he has stepped up and he's going to be building the student housing. And I'm very happy about that. The citizens have stated, yeah, but what about the water that could be consumed? Your plan factors in the PUD water taps that that kind of a development would require, correct?
The reconciliation plan, is that what you're referring to, or just the water plan?
I believe I'm referring to the water plan. That's the comments I've heard, is the concern that we would run out of water with the construction. And I don't think that is a true worry for the citizens, but I would like you to, I'd like them to hear it from you so that they can support this development initiative.
Well, we're getting a little off the reconciliation, but I can answer that, no problem. So my predecessor, Jim Schultz, did a water analysis when Karis came to town or came to the table to discuss. I have not reviewed that, and Michael has tasked me to review that, water study that was done. And that water study did include temporary housing. And we had the water to support the project at the time, as I recall. Things do change over time. I need to look at that and see what numbers need to be updated, see what their current usages are, to see if they're on track with that analysis.
I would encourage you to do that because it has come up in some social media posts. I have not said anything for the record because I wasn't positive. I simply have had conversations with you and I felt that from my past knowledge, all of that water required was factored in, and the citizens just need to know that so that there's not a pushback for the housing and the student housing that is sorely needed.
We have lots of demands on our system, lots of other things that are boiling at the surface right now as well. And I'll do my best to review that and answer those questions when they come forward.
Thank you very much on behalf of the citizens that have expressed worries and support in both directions. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. May I? Sure. So I'd like to echo both Councilmember Neal and Councilmember Zuluaga's comments. I think you do a fantastic job. My comments are probably the same as they were last year. When I weigh increasing the cost of a tap for citizens who will be building or developers who are looking at building, the average increase is about $1,500 from last year. I'm not apt to increase the cost for them. We want to incentivize them to continue to build the housing we need. And in particular, I struggle with the amount of total taps that you estimate. I know you said you can't predict it, but I also look at relatively past history data being a good indicator of what to expect. And when we have listed in expected new taps for the year at 20, but I look at the data and over the last 6 years, the average per year was 44. And over the last 9 years, which includes all of these on the sheet, the average per year was 54. I have to question why that expected number is so low. The more taps we sell, the more overall revenue we have. And do we really need to increase the cost of development through the tap fee in order to do that? I would really like to see what these numbers look like by increasing that estimated number of taps and seeing if we really have to impose this increase for tap fees.
So yes, we do. And I'll do my best to try one last time to persuade you. So when you look at the last 9 years, 1 year, there's 110 taps. Look at the average tap fee next to it. $5,547. When a tap costs, a single family tap costs $14,592. So because we micromanage our taps, which I just love, to a certain degree, we have different fees. So when you look at the average cost of a tap fee, it goes from 5,000 up to 14,000. And the highest average tap fee that I have on here is $14,717, and that was in 2020. That is $100 over what we sell a tap for today. So people are taking advantage of our tiered structure and buying the cheaper taps. The 5% increase from this year to next year is $729. So we go from 14,592 to 15,322. So we're increasing 700. And what I try to do is find a balance between who's paying for our improvements. Is it our existing customers or is it new development? And the best answer is, well, they both should. You're paying to connect to the system for this service, and you're paying to keep that service. And water is going up and up. So we did an assessment of average tap fees as well. And we found over in our little region here, we're right in the middle. Assuming no one increases their fees this year. We put our increase in there and we're in the middle, maybe a little bit just above the middle. So we looked at Manitou, Colorado Springs, Fountain, Whitefield, we looked at all those. So I think we're doing a pretty good job there. And when you look at who's actually paid the cost of the system as a whole, existing customers have carried about 60% of the load, where new development has carried about 40%. So I think we're doing fairly well now. If there's a developer sitting next to me, he's gonna be like, nope, I need it cheaper because I'm gonna make some money out of it, right? So, and yes, we want to take care of our customers when they buy into our system as well. You know, and I said this at the Citizens Academy, it's just tough for me sometimes because we have a resource and we're a business and we tell people not to use our resource. It's just baffling to me. Like, I want to sell some water, I want to make some money, want to improve this system. So I try to hold existing customers, I'll say higher because they're loyal, they've been here, they've been paying their bills as opposed to new development.
So quick question, because you did say it only increased by $700. I need you to walk me through that because if I'm looking at the average tap fee for 2021, it shows $13,689 and then increasing the average to $15,322.
So that's already passed. So that's what the average tap fee. So the actual tap fee in 2021 was $14,592. So based on how many taps we sold and the revenue we generated off those taps, that's where we get $13,689.
Okay, thank you.
So and then right below the dotted line, I have the $15,322, and that is a 5% increase on the $14,592.
Got it.
So,
Mayor, may I ask Kip for some just additional context that I think is kind of germane to this conversation? Kip, can you talk just briefly about some of our peer municipalities and districts down I'm thinking like Fountain and Pueblo West and what they're going through. Just to kind of bring home the water situation and the tap fee situation and looking forward, just how much more desperate might the water situation get?
So according to the news, now I haven't verified this, so bear with me. But according to the news, Pueblo West did an assessment of their water system and determined they don't even have water close enough for their total planned build out. So they need to either increase their tap fees significantly in the $10,000 to $20,000 increments, or similar with their current customers is increase their rates. However, they've recently gone to Pueblo Board of Waterworks to get more water. And Pueblo Board of Waterworks did an agreement with them to provide more water, but also had a clause in there that they were going to charge an additional $1,300 for every tap purchased. So that's Pueblo West and Pueblo Board of Waterworks. City of Fountain had big multifamily projects going on, and come to find out they don't have a water for it, so they ceased selling taps. I'm trying to avoid that, obviously, and you guys all recognize that. I thank you for that. But water's a real challenge, and I would say if I could look at this, I could throw rocks at, or you could throw rocks at me. The tough part is just predicting the future. What are we going to sell taps at? If we sell more taps, great, and we can capitalize on that with those increased fees. And in those bad years, we don't, to try to sell more. That's my only. Or if we sell enough, maybe next year, or the year after, we don't have to do an increase because we have enough money to possibly fund our projects that we think that are going to have to happen. So did I do a better job this year?
Yes, you do a fantastic job always. I wish we had finances like this for all of our departments. You do a phenomenal job managing it. Again, if we sell enough this year, maybe we don't have to increase, but I have heard that for many, many, many years. I
did.
And I appreciate it is very, very difficult to estimate that. I would like to see that inched up a bit. Luckily, you won't have to deal with me next year anyways. But nothing against you. I can't let my last vote be to increase fees. So.
Well, just for the record, I had a rate increase in here for our existing customers before I took it to the Utilities Advisory Committee. Just to make sure you didn't see those smaller fund balances. And I just thought, our existing customers have been carrying the load. I gotta respect that and try to do what's best for the 8,300 citizens that we have and the 50 maybe taps we might sell.
Thank you.
Council, anything further?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd just like to make a comment.
Sure.
I just have to say that I think all the departments in the city do a pretty darn good job of managing their finances. And I just want them to know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Kip, you do a really good job. Like Councilmember Case said, everybody does a good job, but this is a unique model where it is an enterprise that it does need to make money in order to supply a product. So it's a difficult place because usually I wholeheartedly agree with you and I don't vote to raise fees, but I sit on the Utility Advisory Board and went through this presentation. We got to ask a lot of questions and work with citizens also. And I have to say, I agree with Kip with the tap increase fee and not letting it go to the residents. But at some point, somewhere, it has to come into play because of the cost of all of the materials that are rising and the cost of manpower is rising. And unfortunately, to have fresh, clean, safe drinking water, we've got to be able to afford it. So, but I do appreciate your questions. They're excellent. And I agree with you. But 1 year I'm going with Kip. So, but anyways.
Well, and just to add, the UAC has been very active in this and provides lots of good input. So it was run through them as well. And I can't thank, our staff, they're the ones who save the money.
Yeah.
they do amazing things, like all of them. So wastewater, they do a lot in-house that we don't have to contract out. So I thank them.
Council, can I get a motion?
Excuse me.
Oh, yes.
Well, we
Mo-
do have someone that would like to speak.
Very good.
So we have Vicky Alexander would like to speak.
Okay.
Vicky, you may speak. She's on mute. You need to be off mute, Vicky.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So one thing I wanted to make a comment on was the water tap fees and also the fixture units. I did an analysis of both of these, and if you notice on the tap fees page, the fixture units are based on 1997 Uniform Plumbing Code, and the plumbing code has been upgraded multiple times since then. And because of that, the number of fixture units we're using as a city does not correlate with the current plumbing code. And it reduces the number of fixture units that are used because over that time period, we've developed in our country more water saving devices. So what's happening is the tap fees are based on fixture units that are not current. Okay. So I have talked to KIP's staff, one of the persons in his staff, and I asked about this. I said, well, has any contractors ever commented on this? And she told me one had. Well, the reason why is that tap fees are really passed on to the homeowner. They aren't paid by the contractor. And fixture units for those new homes are much less than these that are being counted. So what I'm going to recommend is that there be an analysis of the tap fees and the fixture units, and that they be upgraded to current code. That way that we're not showing apples and oranges any longer.
Okay, that's an excellent comment, and I'm going to go ahead and let Director Riley address that.
So it is, as everyone knows, plumbing codes, electric codes, building codes all get improved from time to time. Back when the tiered tap system was put into place, we used the 1997 Uniform Plumbing Code. Today, if I were to analyze the current plumbing code and the UAC's reasoning behind how they came to 0 to 25 fixtures for tier 1 tap, I would simply just take, we had 2 bathrooms. What does 2 bathrooms in the new plumbing code relate to? And change the number of fixtures and it would go down. Nothing's really changing when it comes to comparing fixtures now, other than the fact that there are more water sense fixtures. So basically the new plumbing codes say, hey, a new water closet uses less water. So we're gonna, instead of valuing it at 2.5 fixture units, we're gonna value it at, I'm just gonna make a number up 2. So you get half a fixture unit reduction. I would simply just reduce these tiers to reflect the new plumbing code. The prices would stay the same. So it would be a newer plumbing code, a smaller fixture, but the same tier, same fee.
Not necessarily, because if you can go from tier 2 to tier 1 by reducing your fixture units, then you're saving $4,000 as a homeowner. The other part of this is that the homes that currently exist in the city probably have a higher fixture unit as far as general use because they haven't upgraded their fixtures, where a new home has. So I think we're better off incentivizing people that build here and look at what we can do and incentivize the rest of the 8,300 community members and what they can do to reduce their water usage by upgrading their fixtures. I think there's a lot more to this than just the tier. And I've had to do this because I have a a property that has a number of unused fixtured units. And so that's why I did this analysis. And I think it's important.
No, it is. Sorry, I can't. The tough part with putting in the tiered system was to make it so people, it could be more affordable to build a facility or a structure that used less water with less fixtures. So that was the whole point behind the tiered tap system. I've had lots of discussion with folks. Some want to just have a standard fee, one size fits all like we used to before this. But it didn't incentivize people to build, I will say, structures with less fixtures. You're absolutely right. The fixtures are getting more efficient. We see it on the wastewater side. Less dilution for our wastewater plant. However, I will say I still need the same amount of infrastructure to provide that water. I still need the pipes in the ground to get it there. I still need the water treatment plant to produce it. Maybe not as much water to be produced, but I will tell you over the years, we use right around 800 acre feet a year, and it hasn't changed for a while, even though we've gone up in population. It's been amazing. We see it at the flow at the wastewater plant, the hydraulic loading, or at the wastewater plant, it stayed the same, even though the organic loading is a different discussion. And I get less and less water now, and it's just more expensive. So, I mean, I appreciate your comments. There's a gentleman that out there that says he needs a smaller tap fee if he puts in more water sense fixtures. And I say, oh, you just saved on your water bill. Congratulations.
Well, except I think my concern also is the incongruity between what we're using in this part of the city, which is the 1997 Uniform Plumbing Code, and yet our building codes have to be at current standards. So again, it's this issue of things not being compliant in a broader sense. And if that means that the tax fees have to be increased, or the amount of fees that people are having to pay for their water, then so be it. But I think that we're better off start looking at this and updating it.
Mic on, sorry. Yeah, those are very good comments. And Kip, good answers. And if there is a reason that we need to look at updating your codes to match current building codes, I'm sure that's something that can be considered for future council.
I will definitely put it on the list to start looking into for sure. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, council.
And as you know, we've had a conversation. There's other clients out there who are also looking at having this revisited for different reasons. But I concur with Vicky. I think it's a project we could look at into the next cycle.
Very good. Council, now may I get a motion? Oh, Jeff, did you have your hand up? Oh, okay. Okay.
I'll make it.
Suzanne, we can't see it up on here.
Oh, I can, sorry.
Yeah, and Ms. Alexander, I'm not trying to blow you off. I'm going to make the motion. It's very hard to sit here and listen to you because it sounds like you know quite a bit about what you're talking about. I would like to see some data behind your assessments so that any future votes or future allocations, we'd have some data to compare or to look at. Right now, we have KIPS data and it has a lot of historical information behind it. So I trust what I'm looking at right now, but I have an open mind. I would like to see some new data if you have the ability to produce something or offer something. So I'm not going to blow you off. I'm interested in seeing what you might have, but I am going to make a motion to approve resolution number 888, establishing water and sewer plant investment fees effective April 1, 2022, as presented by Kip Wiley.
And I will second that.
Thank you. Council, you may vote.
Go ahead.
Kip, do you want to guess the? Motion carries 5-1.
All right, very good. And
There you go.
council, we are on to reports. And I see it's almost 9 and we're just gonna keep going.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
There's just so many pieces.
and for mayor reports, I don't have anything this evening other than happy St. Patrick's Day. Councilmember Councilmember Alfieri.
Do you want to do case first? Before we forget about it?
Hello.
Oh, Councilmember Case, hi.
Hello, how is everyone? I just first of all would like to thank you all for allowing me to participate from home because you definitely did not want me there. Anyway, I just want to report that at the Park and Rec Advisory Board meeting last week, the Levy family, Paula and Max, did come and do a presentation to the board about the dedication of the field and their thoughts and elevations, just preliminary on what they're thinking and looking at, and their fundraising efforts and all of that information. It was really awesome to see. And I'm not sure when they're going to come forward to the council, but things look really good. And it was really wonderful to have them. And other than that, I had to recuse myself from the rest of the meeting because of a quasi judicial thing that was presented and coming forward. So I have nothing else to report on that, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, Councilmember Alfieri.
Thank you. I have nothing.
Councilmember Nakai.
I have nothing either other than to say the same thing. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Councilmember Neal.
I do not have a council liaison report, but I think this is the portion of the council meeting where we can introduce a potential agenda item for the future. This suggestion to add a council item came from 2 citizens. I'm going to give credit where credit was due. Lisa Titus Page and Jerry Penland. They had entered a discussion on a social media platform suggesting that the city take a look at possibly looking at planting trees or a barrier or something that could improve the appearance as you enter into Woodland Park, the trailer park that is adjacent to Walmart. Some people think that it's an eyesore. Some people don't, but they were asking if it could be discussed at council. I know it takes 2 council members, and I did reach out. I told these 2 citizens that I would bring it up. I don't necessarily support it, but we are a conduit for the citizens to get agenda items, and this is a legitimate request by multiple citizens. Catherine has seconded it. She said, yeah, we can discuss it. So I'm just bringing it up that I would like to see an agenda item where we talk about that location. And the discussion did evolve into the possibility of planting some trees on the south side of Woodland Park. I'm sorry, Woodland Station, where the mobile home park is also located. I'm not saying I'm in favor of it. I simply told them that I would facilitate and champion the agenda item being placed on the table.
Sure.
And that's all I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, and I have the same. I mean, I didn't said was for or against it, but thought we should have the discussion.
I think Stephanie's
make
going to make
this quick.
Yeah.
I think the DDA property is different because that
Yeah.
is part of
It
city
is.
government.
It is.
I think we probably need to have the attorney look into, in my mind, first of all, we can't, you're looking at where those trees are placed on the property. We can't force the property owner to
Oh, I
put
agree.
trees in. And I
agree.
believe otherwise that property would be CDOT easement, which we have no control over.
And Stephanie, my
Potentially.
point is, I think
Yeah.
everything you're saying would be brought forward in the
Yeah,
discussion
discuss it.
as the agenda item. Now is not the time to do it.
Of course.
But I want to let them know, we heard you, you
Yeah.
want a topic. I'm asking for it to be
Yep.
placed, and then we can talk about it because there. are
I'm
a
just
lot of-
wondering if you want the attorney to look into it now before having the discussion
Can
or.
we get a consensus to ask the attorney
Sure.
with council support, taking a look at some of the issues around placing any kind of a barrier? Because it is it's either CDOT property
Private
or
property.
CDOT involvement or private property, or in fact, public property, because Woodland Station belongs to the DDA, which
Yeah.
is a public body. So could you take a
Well,
look at some of the,
Before you commission him to look at the DDA property, you might like to know that the DDA has a number of trees already sitting, waiting to be planted on the property. So you guys can do that on the DDA without having to spend our attorney's money to do that, simply
Right.
because you're in charge of that property and you already have those trees.
great point. I can take that back as a DDA liaison, back to the DDA and bring this topic to them.
Yeah.
So the request for tasking the city attorney would simply be for that property down adjacent to Walmart,
Walmart.
which is on CDOT.
Well, I
It's
think it's
private.
private. It's
Private.
primarily
Yeah, I
private.
think it's
property.
primarily
Yeah.
private.
Yeah, the easement would be CDOT.
So was that direction for us to look into it or not?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right?
What
well, I'm
are
gonna
the
need some
issues?
more direction from staff.
Right.
I'm gonna need some direction from staff to know which property I'm looking into, but we'll have.
I would suggest that maybe a combination of staff.
Yeah.
And then if the city attorney needs to weigh in.
Involved, we can get this, yeah. That works.
Agreed. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. You're welcome. Councilmember Zulawaga.
Well, I just simply want to say thank you to all of you for serving together. This will be our last council meeting together. And then the citizens will vote who's up here in April. So I just want to say thank you all, specifically Stephanie, thank you for serving. And we don't know whether the other ones will be with us or not, but all of you, thank you so much. And that's my report.
Very good.
And I'm expecting our attorney to step up to the plate on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, front loaded.
Go, Jeff. go.
Hey, an Irishman walks into a bar and he orders 7 shots of Irish whiskey and a pint of Guinness. And so the bartender pours out the 7 shots and turns to get the pint of Guinness. By the time he gets back, the shots are all drunk. And the bartender says, wow, that was quick. And the Irishman says, well, if you've got what I've got, you'd be quick too. And the bartender says, ooh, well, what have you got? And he says, 50 cents. So there.
You've come through, Jeff. Thank you.
Perfect. City manager.
What does it mean if you find the 4-leaf clover? It means you've got too much time on your hands. Suzanne has an election update for us.
Thanks, Michael. So as Councilmember Zuluaga said, we're in the middle of an election right now, and I wanted to let everybody know that the ballots have been mailed. A total so far of 6,180 ballots have been mailed. 6,080 ballots were the registered voters. And the difference of the other 100 were our uniformed overseas ballots and our new registrants. Since we mailed them, we've had new people register to vote, which happens daily, and we just continue sending those ballots out. Wanted to let everyone know that the judges training for the elections is Monday in the council chambers here at 2 p.m. And I would encourage anyone that wants to learn the process to come and watch. You can watch everything and how the judges are trained, what they do the minute they receive a ballot, take it all the way through the process, how they look at the signatures and all of that. If you are interested, you may attend that. Councilmember Zuluaga said that this possibly could be Miss Alfieri's final council meeting. However, it could not be too.
Right.
I do need to remind council that if the election can be called, meaning if there's no recount, we can then seat the new council. The charter says that the new council gets seated at the council meeting immediately following the election. But that means that I have to have an election that I can call, as Miss Alfieri knows from her last seating on the dais. Sometimes it can't be called right away. There's a couple of reasons that it may not be called, because I may have a difference that's too slim when I need the Uocava voters ballots to all come back. Remember, they come back they have up until 8 days after the election to be returned. So if I know that difference is in outstanding ballots there, we won't call the election. And then also, if there's a possibility of needing a recount, which is that 0.5%, if the winner wins by 0.5% or less, I have to do an automatic recount. So I just want to remind council of that. We still want Council Member Alfieri, regardless, to be here next council meeting, because you will start the meeting on the dais. You will start the meeting as a council member. We will have opportunity for the outgoing council members to say some remarks. So if you'd like to prepare those, you have time to do that. Say whatever, about your experience, whatever you want to talk about. And then we will have you come off the dais. The new council will come before us. We will do an oath of office, and then they will take their seat. So we still want you here next council meeting.
I will still be here, yes, next time, yes, but
Okay.
don't
Not
expect much
so
from me. I
fast.
plan to do nothing during that time. Yeah,
Okay.
no longer my responsibility.
So you will get one more packet, dear.
Oh, that's true.
One more packet. So if anyone has any questions, please know I'm always available to answer any election council questions that council or the citizens may have. Thank you.
And finally, I want to thank our snow removal crews. As many of you mentioned, there was some pretty decent snow out today. And Kip says he's a busy guy. I want to recognize Kip because he was out there this morning at dark 30 himself. Right? Yes. Makes the team, it does. And Kip understands that. So he was out there himself doing the hard work. So thank you, Kip. That's all I have.
And Suzanne's letting me know there's a hand up.
There is, we do have someone that I believe wants to say something, and that is Elizabeth Miller.
Well, this is actually Craig, but when were the ballots mailed? I've not received my ballot.
That's correct. They've been mailed. They started being mailed on Monday, the 14th, and they're mailed in batches each day. A few more go out. So sometimes you may not have your ballot, but your neighbor will. But probably, I would say by next week, we can expect everyone to have them in hand. I do have a new tracking program. So if you wanted to call me next week, I could actually look up your ballot for you and tell you exactly where it is. So if you want to give me a call next week, if you don't get it, we can find out what post office it's sitting in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, very good. This meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, I forgot, Stephanie, how long you had to wait. I forgot, how many weeks was it you had to wait before you were finally sworn in? It was 1 month.